Discover 10 sinister and spine-chilling true tales of haunted Appalachian cabins revealed. The Thompsons had no idea what awaited them. As they pulled into Ravenswood, the fog clung to their rusting pickup like an unwanted ghost. The townsfolk seemed friendly enough, their smiles warm yet hollow. But beneath the picturesque autumn leaves lay a creeping dread. The cabin, their new inheritance, wore a facade of nostalgic charm, but the peeling paint and crooked shutters whispered secrets better left untold on their first night. The air grew thick with an unsettling presence. They laid awake, heartbeats drumming in unison. Ethan, their 5-year-old son, giggled from the other room, talking to his friend. Sarah shivered, exchanging worried glances with her husband, Mike. What kind of friend lurked in their dreams? As they explored their new home, the creaking floorboards echoed with invisible steps, sending shivers down their spines. The shadows felt alive, pressing against the walls, and whispers seemed to seep from the corners of the dimly lit rooms. "It's just the house settling," Mike murmured, forcing a smile, but even he couldn't shake the encroaching darkness. Days morphed into restless nights. Ethan continued to speak of his friend, eyes wide with wonder, while the Thompsons fought to maintain their sanity. The townsfolk welcomed them with wide smiles at first, but their eyes were filled with something else: fear? Curiosity? When Mike casually mentioned Ethan as friend, their grins faltered. Conversations hushed, glances traded, whispers unfolding like a dark bloom. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. One stormy night, as rain lashed against the windows, Sarah stumbled upon a dusty journal in the attic. Its pages were filled with frantic scrawls. Each line dripped with terror, recounting a lineage marred by curses and dark rituals conducted under the watchful gaze of the night. The air in the cabin turned electric as chilling words danced before her eyes. Bloodlines, sacrifices, a thirst for renewal. When they took their fears to Sheriff Lawson, his dismissive grin sent a chill down their backs. "Just local superstitions," he chuckled, waving away their concerns as if they were mere fog. Alone in a sea of shadows, the Thompsons felt the weight of unseen eyes boring into them. As night draped its cloak over Ravenswood, the house became a living entity. The whispers escalated into a cacophony as Ethan's friend drew ever closer. Every doorway seemed to bend toward them, dark figures lurking beyond their reach, nightmares spilling into the waking world. Mike's heart raced as the ground beneath their lives shuddered. With every eerie creak and every flicker of shadow, they realized they were ensnared in something far beyond their understanding. The darkness they sought to escape was alive, and it had found them. Racing against a history soaked in blood, the question loomed: were they destined to break free, or would they become echoes in the walls, forever part of the haunting tales that whispered through Ravenswood? The next morning arrived with a gray, oppressive sky. Mike couldn't shake the night's horrors that replayed in his mind like a broken record. As Ethan played by the window, his laughter pierced through the oppressive silence of the cabin, an unsettling juxtaposition to the ominous feel that enveloped the Thompsons. "Hey buddy, what are you talking about with your friend?" Mike asked, forcing a lightness to his voice. Ethan turned, his smile wide and unbreakable. "He says we should play outside, Daddy," he chirped, bright eyes glowing with innocence. "Outside?" Mike hesitated. The woods surrounding the cabin loomed dark and thick, and only yesterday did he sense something wrong there. "How about we play a game inside first?" Ethan's face fell. "But he wants to play tag in the trees." His voice dropped conspiratorially. "He said he can hide really well." Nausea twisted in Mike's stomach, a primal instinct warning him to stay away from the shadows of the forest. "We'll stick to the living room for now," he replied, determination sharpening his tone. Sarah spent the day flipping through the journal again, seeking more knowledge, desperate to understand what was happening. Its words hung in the air like dense smoke. She discovered passages about the forest, a place where time folded in on itself, spirits trapped, and shadows drawn to the living. The more she read, the more convinced she was that the Thompsons had walked into a story well beyond their lives. As evening fell, a sickly light cast long shadows across the room, warping the furniture into grotesque shapes. Ethan sat cross-legged in front of the living room fireplace, transfixed. His gaze was fixed on the darkness that bled into the corners. "Who's here?" Ethan whispered, his tiny voice breaking with a tremor. "Who's here?" Sarah asked, dread pooling in her stomach. "My friend. He's not happy. He says you shouldn't have read the book." Chilled, Sarah locked eyes with Mike. "We need to leave. Right now?" But as they rushed to grab their things, the whispers grew louder, rising into a furious roar, a tempest of dark sounds swirling around them. From the shadows, figures began to coalesce, dark outlines taking the form of twisted faces watching with hollow eyes. "Get away," Mike shouted, panic cutting through him like ice. They staggered back against the walls, heartbeats drumming wildly in their chests. "Daddy!" Ethan shrieked, and suddenly, the lights flickered violently. The room plunged into chaotic darkness, filled only with the sound of their rapid breaths and the rush of whispering voices, taunting, beckoning. "Close your eyes, Ethan," Sarah screamed, wrapping her arms around her son, shielding him from the chaos. But then came a chilling pulse of silence, thick enough to suffocate. It hung there, making them feel exposed. "What do you want?" Mike shouted, his voice breaking. All at once, the shadows ceased. The room fell into near-perfect stillness. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Then, a soft voice broke through the silence, slick like oil. "You shouldn't have come." The connection between the Thompsons and their house twisted tighter, and they realized it wasn't just the haunting that threatened them. It was something far worse, an entanglement with an ancient terror. As the darkness enveloped them, they felt a pull, a tugging at their very souls, whispering promises of sacrifice. What did he want from them? And what price would they have to pay to escape? As the shadows swallowed the last rays of light, the Thompsons found themselves racing against a fate sealed long before they arrived. The silence that enveloped the Thompsons was thick, suffocating. Mike's heart raced as he scanned the darkened corners of the cabin, waiting for something, anything, to break the stillness. He could feel Sarah's grip tightening around Ethan, her breath shaky, and it only added to his growing anxiety. "What do we do?" he whispered, barely able to find his voice. "Just wait," Sarah breathed, voice strained as she tucked Ethan closer, her eyes darting around the room. But waiting felt like a punishment. The stillness was also ripe with malevolence, and each second stretched into eternity. Then it came, a soft rustling, like a leaf caught in the wind. Only it didn't feel natural. It felt deliberate. Their eyes widened, and Mike felt a surge of adrenaline. He turned toward the source of the sound, a shadow flitting just beyond the reach of the dying firelight. It was there. The shape twisted and shifted like smoke, its form warping before their eyes. "Play with me," it hissed, a voice dripping with malice, each syllable dragging like nails against glass. "Leave us alone," Mike shouted, his fear fueling defiance. "Daddy, I'm scared," Ethan cried, the innocence in his voice shattered in that moment. A low, melodic laugh echoed through the room, reverberating off the walls, chilling their bones. "Scared? You should be. It's so much fun." Panic surged through Mike and Sarah as they moved backward instinctively, still clutching Ethan. The shadows stretched toward them, hungry and hungry still. "We need to get out of here," Sarah shouted, but the cabin around them seemed to thrum with a current of resistance, as if the walls themselves wanted to keep them trapped within. A desperate idea struck Mike's mind. "The front door?" He surged forward, pulling on the handle, but the door wouldn't budge. It was as if it were sealed shut by an unseen force. "Ethan, stay close," he warned, panic bubbling beneath his voice. "Daddy, he says he wants to play tag. He said we can't leave until we play with him." Ethan squeaked, tears streaming down his cheeks. Mike's stomach twisted. "Ethan, sweetie, we can't. Why? It'll be fun." "No, it won't." Mike snapped, the idea of his son playing in the clutches of that creature making his skin crawl. But Ethan's eyes sparkled with a childlike belief that made Mike's heart ache. As he struggled against the door, shadows curled around his feet like snakes. He felt their icy grasp tingle up his legs. "No, let go," he yelled, pulling furiously, but the door wouldn't yield. In that moment, the cabin shuddered, and the lights flickered to life again. Shadows twisted wildly against the walls, and the room grew colder, the darkness pushing closer. A single haunting whisper echoed from the corners, slithering into their ears. "Play with me, or stay forever." Mike's desperation turned to fury. "I will not play your game." Suddenly, everything stopped. Silence returned, heavy and foreboding. The darkness didn't retreat. It coiled around them, tightening its grip like a noose. "What do we do?" Sarah gasped, her voice trembling. "What if we don't play?" And just as he said those words, the apparition solidified, looming before them, its features shifting and pulsating like molten wax. It grinned, all jagged teeth and hollowness, a mockery of a smile. "You have no choice," it seemed to sing, and in that instant, Mike saw it a glimpse of an ancient, dark promise etched across the creature's twisted form. As dread flooded his veins, he realized that there was no escape without a sacrifice. The cabin around them thrummed, hungry for the very essence of who they were. "Daddy," Ethan whimpered, staring wide-eyed at the horror manifesting before them. A new type of terror gripped Mike. This wasn't just about survival anymore. What would he sacrifice to break the bond with the dark? "Fight it!" Sarah screamed, but the words faded into the suffocating silence as shadows whirled violently. And then came the chorus, a cacophony of anguished whispers melding into a single, terrifying demand: play or be played with. But what exactly would that mean for the Thompsons? As the room darkened once again, an answer loomed, and they had a choice to make. Would they dare risk it all? The air thickened with tension, every breath a struggle as Mike's mind raced for a solution. He opened his mouth, ready to defy the monster, but his voice faltered. How could he fight something so deeply woven into the fabric of this cabin? The shadows pressed closer, crawling up their legs, whispering secrets they dared not know. "Mike, we need to think." Sarah's voice broke through the fog of panic, her gaze fixed on Ethan's wide eyes. "We can't let it win. Think." He spat back, heart pounding against his ribs. "What do you suggest?" "There's no way out." The creature began to sway, melting into the shadows, its hunger palpable, extending a twisted hand towards Ethan. "Play with me just a little. I promise you'll enjoy it." The false cheer in its voice was sickening. Mike stepped forward instinctively, but the shadows recoiled, forcing him back. He could feel his throat tightening, his heart pounding with horror. "Ethan," he shouted, his voice cracking. "Listen to me. Don't trust it." Ethan looked up, confusion mixed with fear reflecting in his eyes. "But Daddy, he's just lonely." A pang of despair struck Mike. How could his son be so innocent in the face of such darkness? The creature laughed, the sound echoing like broken glass. "Lonely children play well, don't they?" "Shut up," Mike screamed. "You don't know anything about him." The creature's grin widened, teeth glistening in the flickering firelight. "Oh, I know everything, and soon, he will too." The lights blinked ominously, and for a moment, they plunged into darkness, swallowed by nightmares. Mike felt the loss of warmth as another wave of cold swept through the cabin. It was more than a chill. It felt like death grazing against his skin. "Sarah," he shouted, reaching for her in the dark. "We can't give in." Fingers met his, clammy and trembling. "What do we do?" she whispered, and he could feel her breath on his face, panicky, desperate. "We fight," he gritted out. "We find a way to turn this back on it." "But how?" The whispers clawed at his sanity. "You can't fight the game." Mike suddenly, a flicker of light returned, illuminating the creature, now half-formed, shifting between the realm of shadow and flesh. It twisted itself into the shape of an old man, face lined with a grotesque smile. "Your choice, little family. Join the game, or lose yourselves forever." Mike felt the ice in his veins, the crack of realization that this was no ordinary evil. It fed on despair, and their fear only made it stronger. "Ethan," he cried, squeezing his son's shoulder, forcing his gaze to meet his. "You need to help us fight." "I don't want to play," Ethan whimpered, his small voice drowning in the darkness. "You don't have to," Mike urged, desperation clawing at his heart. But deep down, he knew they were being tested. With a sudden surge of anger, Mike lunged towards the dark figure, only to have it dissolve into smoke, sliding away like a serpent. The room shrieked with laughter, and shadows danced wildly. "Playing tag is so much fun. Get away from him," Sarah screamed, now standing beside Mike, eyes aflame with defiance. The creature thickened, circling around them, taunting. Every game has its rules, and every rule has its price. Mike felt the weight of all their choices crashing down. What price would he pay to save his family? The thought bloomed in his mind, dark and twisted. Was it worth sacrificing part of himself? Ethan, no matter what happens, remember I love you. He shouted, hope mingling with dread. Play with us, little boy. The creature crooned, its voice a sickening lullaby, and then, without warning, everything around them spun, the room twisting in on itself. The shadows devoured the walls, and all at once, the ground seemed to drop out beneath them as they tumbled through the darkness. Mike's mind raced. What was the game? What could they do to escape? It felt like they were caught in a nightmare with no end, and he needed to rally his loved ones while they still had the strength to fight back. Just as they landed with a heavy thud, a new whisper slithered through the air, chilling him to the bone. You ready to play? In the terrifying silence that followed, Mike's heart pounded as the door in its disarray slowly creaked open, revealing a glimmer of light beyond. But it was impossible to tell if it was salvation or more darkness waiting to ensnare them. What lay ahead? Would they find their way out? Or had they just stepped into a deeper nightmare? The light from the door danced like a flickering candle, casting eerie shadows that twisted and warped against the cabin's interior. It beckoned them, that glow at once tempting and terrifying. Mike took a shaky step forward, glancing back at Sarah and Ethan. Their faces were pale, caught in the grip of indecision. Should we go? Sarah whispered, her voice barely masking the fear tethered to her words. We might not have a choice, Mike replied, heart hammering. Staying here can't be better. With a deep breath, he took another step. The floorboards creaked ominously beneath his weight, the sound reverberating like a warning. Ethan, stay close, he called, wishing he could project strength into the shaky note of his voice that as they moved toward the light. The shadows seemed to writhe and hiss around them, drawing closer. Where are you going? The creature's sickly, sweet voice echoed ominously. Don't you want to play? Not with you. Mike shot back, feeling the courage burning hot in his chest. They had to see what lay ahead, and somehow, they had to break whatever grip this monster had on their lives. With a desperate push against the choking darkness, Mike ushered his family through the door. They spilled out into the light, blinking against the brightness. It was a small room, bare, but serviceable. A table stood at the center, with a deck of cards fanned out on its surface. Is this part of the game? Ethan gasped, gazing wide-eyed at the strange tableau. Looks like it, Mike murmured. But why here? His hand hovered over the cards, uncertainty flooding through him. The air changed, a deep chill creeping in. An oppressive weight settled, pressing down on their chests. Choose wisely. The voice slithered back around them, a shadow veiling the edges of the room. For the deck holds your fate. Who plays? Sarah exclaimed, a mix of terror and defiance on her face. Ethan, stay back, Mike warned. What if it's a trap? It is, the creature crooned, seeping in through the cracks of their resolve. But we wouldn't want you to break family ties now, would we? Get out of our heads, Mike shouted, gripping the edge of the table so tightly his knuckles blanched. Suddenly, the cards began to shuffle themselves one by one. They flipped over in a chaotic dance. Mike couldn't tear his eyes away. They seemed alive, each card holding a chilling face of its own. What if they mean something? Ethan murmured, growing anxious. What do they want? They want us to play, Sarah said, fear punctuating her straightened spine. But what are we risking? Before Mike could respond, a card flipped face up, revealing a dark figure, mouth wide in an agonizing scream. His heart plummeted. No, that's just the beginning, the creature whispered, curling its form around the edges of the room. With each choice, you delve deeper. You can't escape the game. Then we defy the game. Mike felt a spark of rebellion ignite. Together. But as he spoke, the shadows thickened, pressing against his family like a suffocating blanket. Come now, little family. What is your first choice? After all, every game has its rules. The thrill of fear clawed at Mike's insides. He took a deep breath, a primordial instinct screaming within him. The next move could seal their fates. Ethan, what do you want to do? He asked, his voice trembling. I don't want to hurt you, Ethan stammered, eyes darting between the cards. No one is going to get hurt. Mike insisted. He turned to the table, All bets off. Let us find out what they want. What would they choose? Would they unravel the truth or be swallowed by the game? The scent of desperation lingered in the air as the creature laughed softly, echoing through the hollowed regions of their resolve. And then, with a pulse of dread coursing through them, the shadows hissed, ready for the game to unfold. Are you ready to lose? A chilling silence enveloped them, the cards waiting expectantly for their fate to be sealed. What awaited them on the other side of the decision? Mike's breath caught in his throat as he stared at the deck. The sun outside was bright, yet an insidious darkness brewed within the room, drowning out the warmth of the light. We have to pick one, he said, his voice trembling again. Ethan shifted uneasily, his little hands clasping and unclasping. What if they're cursed? He whispered. Cursed or not, we can't stand here, Sarah replied, determination snapping through her fear. We can't let whatever that thing is control us. Fine. But which one? Mike surveyed the cards, each one a canvas of dread. He picked one with a trembling hand. Its surface was smooth, too smooth, as if it had been polished by the tears of the damned. The design depicted a shadowy figure cloaked in darkness, eyes glowing menacingly. It felt alive. Wait, Ethan shouted, eyes wide. What if we pick the wrong one? Before Mike could reassure him, a deafening bang echoed throughout the room. The cabin shuddered, walls creaking under the pressure. Shadows leapt forward, clawing at the edges of their vision. Choose. The creature screeched from the void, its voice like nails on a chalkboard. Choose before you're swallowed whole. Throw it back, Sarah urged, panic flooding her voice. No, we need to see what it means. Mike barked, refusing to back down. He flipped the card, teeth clenched, and the room exploded into chaos. Images erupted around them, each scene tied to the horror of the card he had chosen. Bloodied hands reaching out, cries of despair echoing, faces contorted in agony. Ethan stumbled backward, landing hard on the floor, eyes wide with terror. What did you do? He gasped, trembling. As if fed by their fear, the shadows twisted and grew, forming dark shapes that moved with purpose. They were no longer whispers. They were something tangible, something ready to strike. Each card is a path, the creature sang, a choice that holds a piece of your soul. The pain you see, it's just the beginning. The atmosphere thickened, pressing down on them, crowding their thoughts, filling their heads with screams. The whispers turned to shrieks, drowning out the silence of the cabin. Mike felt his heart race, thundering against his ribs like a caged animal. Step back, he shouted suddenly, adrenaline surging through him. He lunged forward, grabbing Ethan and yanking him away from a swirling mass of darkness that began to coalesce into a roiling figure, a creature born from their worst nightmares. The room felt like it was closing in, the air drawing tighter, suffocating. Make another choice. The shadows writhed, tendrils reaching for them, each movement liquid and dangerous. The deck started to shuffle again, grotesque forms manifesting over cards that flipped like mechanical parts. Which one? Sarah screamed. Which one do we choose? The one that gives us the best chance. Mike replied, his desperation igniting an idea. He ran his fingers across the cards until he found one that felt like it pulsed with light, an oasis in their dread. A guest hope laid hidden within, and he grasped it like a lifeline. Whatever happened, stick together, Mike urged, holding the card to his chest. On 3. As they counted together, the shadows began to coalesce into a single, monstrous shape. The monstrous figure seemed to smile, revealing serrated teeth glinting in the haunting light. 1, 2, 3. The silence shattered as Mike flipped the card overhead. The creature screamed, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. What would they unleash now? The card lay bare. Would it be salvation or the true start of their nightmarish game? With bated breath, they stood ready, waiting for whatever came next. The air crackled, a tense silence enveloping them as the card flipped. Mike's heart raced. He could feel every beat echo through the cabin like an ominous warning. The grotesque figure hung in the air, a blend of nightmares brought to life. Its eyes burned with a hunger, and shadows clung to it like a cloak. What did we just do? Sarah whispered, backing away, eyes wide with fear. The figure expanded, filling the space with darkness. The previously familiar walls of the cabin warped, twisting into grotesque shapes that leered at them. Mike could hardly breathe. He felt the weight of dread pressing down on his chest. He focused on the card. It was unlike the other's golden edges, and glowing symbols danced and flickered before his eyes. Ethan clutched Mike's leg, trembling. "Make it stop. Please, make it stop. Stay close," Mike shouted, grounding them all. The creature twisted, its form ever shifting, as if it were testing the very fabric of reality. Then, with a howl that split the air, the monster lunged closer, mouth agape. "Not yet," Mike yelled, desperation clawing at his voice. He held the card high, compelled by a mixture of defiance and fear. "What do you want from us?" The creature paused, as if taken aback. Shadows flickered. For a brief moment, the oppressive weight lifted, and all that surrounded them felt like a disturbing dream, teetering on the edge of numbness. "Power," it hissed, voice serpentine. "Give me your fear, and I will grant you what you desire." "What desire?" Sarah shot back, her eyes darting around as panic seeped into every corner. "Freedom," the creature's voice twisted. "From your mundane existence. Surrender your souls, and I will grant you the lives you truly wish for." Mike's mind spun. He thought of the risk, the dreadful temptation. He felt the throbbing dread in his chest. But beneath that lay the flickering embers of hope. "I know we have to fight this," he murmured, holding tighter to Ethan. "We can't give in. I want to go home." Ethan cried, his voice piercing through the dark. The air grew cold, whispers echoed around them, taunting and sinister. "My time is short," the creature snarled, its face shifting in a grotesque cascade of features. "Make a choice, or be devoured." A sickening thump reverberated from the corners of the room. Mike turned, eyes wide. A shuffle of shadows gathered, a new form rising. Ghastly and warped, the previous intentions of the creature were nothing but a baited trap. "Quick, grab the other cards," Sarah urged, scrambling to pull the deck closer. Mike followed, their fingers racing over the cards. The coldness stung like ice, causing his pulse to quicken with every second. The shadows circled them, tightening their grasp. Nothing seemed real anymore. What was this place? "Ethan, stay by me," Mike yelled, the walls rattling. "You have only moments." The creature screeched. The air pulsed with its fury. Shadows surged forward like dark waves ready to crash. In one desperate motion, they all grabbed cards. Mike's hands encircled one, a frigid sensation coursing through him. They had to decide attack or retreat. And whatever had just been unleashed had only just begun to reveal its true intention. "Now," Mike shouted, and they flipped the cards together. The creature screamed, an unholy wail that chilled their bones. Its body convulsed, dark shapes writhing, and behind them, a chilling revelation hit him. What had they opened? What darkness awaited now? As shadows writhed anew, a deep rumble echoed. The cabin trembled, and the walls bent grotesquely, almost mocking them. "Something's coming, something worse." Ethan wailed, eyes wide with terror. Will they survive the onslaught, or will they be forever ensnared in an endless night? The cards glowed ominously, each pulse hinting at the horrors yet to unleash. What would happen next? A darkness deepened, thickened like fog, ready to swallow them whole. The cabin shook violently, walls twisted as if complaining against some unseen force. Mike fell to his knees, grasping at the floorboards for balance. He felt like he was being sucked into a whirlpool of terror. The creature let out a grotesque laugh, deep and reverberating, sending chills racing down their spines. Shadows twisted and contorted in unnatural ways, forming iridescent shapes that seemed just out of reach, but impossibly close. Mike could feel the weight of despair pressing down on him, nearly suffocating. "Stop it! Stop!" Ethan screamed, trying to drown out the chaos around them. "Ethan, listen. We have to hold on," Mike shouted, fighting through the panic clouding his mind. He held the card tightly, the golden edges biting into his palm. "We can't give up our fear." "What do we do?" Sarah's voice trembled, each word hanging, heavy with dread. Fear turned the air electric. Mike glanced at the card, its symbols flickering with an angry glow. "It has to be a weapon. We have to." Before he could finish his thought, the walls split apart, revealing a void of swirling blackness. Tentacles of shadow slithered through the cracks, weaving like serpents, reaching out as if to snatch the very essence of their being. The room twisted, pushing them closer to the edge of the abyss. "Run!" Sarah yelled. They scrambled to their feet, legs trembling, hearts pounding. Shadows lashed out, grazing their skin like cold knives, but Mike refused to back down. Hold the cards. They're our chance. The creature lunged again, eyes blazing with hunger, the malice in its gaze palpable. Your fear is mine. You cannot resist. With every ounce of strength, Mike yelled, flip the cards. We need power. They did it simultaneously, hands shaking, voices mingled in fear. With a burst of light, their cards erupted with energies unseen. The creature faltered, hissing, caught in a blaze of golden brilliance. No, you cannot, but the light seemed to push back the darkness, forcing it to unravel, its shadows screeching as they dissipated into the air. A moment of hope flickered. Just a little longer, Mike urged, as if willing the light to last. But as the creature fought to regain its shape, a screech broke through the cabin. Dark tendrils reformed, needing the glowing light, trying to strangle it. It fought back fiercely, angered by their defiance. Ethan looked up, eyes wide and glistening. What if it comes back? What if we can't stop it? What if we can? Mike snapped, his voice puncturing the fear like a shard of glass, piercing through the suffocating darkness. They had to believe. In that moment, the cards pulsed again, brighter. Mike sensed a shift in the air, a chance to take control. Think of what you want most. He commanded. Use that to fuel the cards. Sarah closed her eyes tightly, and Mike felt the energy of hope and desperation intertwining. He grabbed Ethan, pulling him close. We can do this together. As if responding to their collective strength, the cards flared even brighter, vibrating with a hum that filled the cabin. The monster shrieked, its body writhing in agony, shadows being forcibly torn away. Then, just as suddenly as it began, everything went dark. The blinding light vanished, and so too did the creature's cries. Where did it go? Sarah whispered. Maybe we won. Ethan asked hesitantly, still clutching Mike, but the silence tasted wrong. It was a heavy void, wrapped in foreboding. The cabin swayed, and an unsettling stillness settled around them. What if it's just waiting? Mike felt an icy dread trickle down his spine. Then a whisper, barely audible, yet unmistakable, echoed through the chamber. You think this is over? A chill swept through. Their hearts raced. Horror wrapped around them once again, tighter this time. Was this really just the beginning of something far worse? What awaited them now? The darkness lingered, thick and suffocating, as the cabin creaked under the weight of their fear. Mike felt the chill seep into his bones, a gnawing sensation that clawed at his insides. He could almost see the shadow lingering at the edge of the void, waiting, patient, malicious. What do we do now? Sarah whispered, her eyes darting around the room, searching for something, anything to hold on to. Stay close, Mike said, trying to steady his voice. We can't let it divide us. Ethan clutched the card, his hands trembling. What if it comes after us again? What if we're just bait? Then we fight back, Mike replied, though doubt gnawed at him like a stubborn rat. He swallowed hard. Just like before. The air turned thick, oppressive. A low, throaty growl echoed from the void, a promise of dread and destruction. The walls of the cabin pulsed as if breathing, as if the structure itself was caught in an uneasy alliance with the horrors beyond. Look, Sarah shouted, pointing toward a flickering light that emerged in the corner of the room. The light pulsed rhythmically, drawing their attention. Mike felt a flicker of hope stir within him as he moved closer. Maybe it's a way out. But as they approached, the warmth of safety evaporated. The light grew dim, revealing the twisted shapes of agony and despair that swirled within. Visages contorted in screams, eyes wide and pleading, their mouths moving in silent desperation. Turn back. Ethan stammered, stepping backward, panic sparking in his gaze. It's not real, it can't be real, Sarah whispered, but her voice quivered. The shadows writhed around them, feeding off doubt, feeding off their fear. With a burst of determination, Mike reached forward. We need to counter it. Focus on the light. He flipped his card again, calling upon their shared power, urging the images of hope and strength to drown out the monstrous despair hovering in front of them. The light pulsed violently, forcing back the tendrils that reached for Mike and his friends. Together, we can push it away. As they joined hands, their cards flared, merging energies into a bright wave of defiance that illuminated the darkness like a beacon. The wailing from the shadowy faces twisted into anguish as they retreated, struggling against the onslaught of light. But then came a discordant noise, a sharp, dissonant laughter that echoed through the cabin, twisting hope into despair. You dare summon your light against me? I feed on your fear. The laughter rang louder, vibrating through the walls, the ceiling. It echoed in their heads, planting seeds of doubt. The shadows slithered closer, encroaching on their light. The air turned colder, almost biting. What do we do? Ethan gasped, words choked by growing terror. The light flickered. They felt its potency waning. We can't give up, Mike shouted, the urgency forcing the words from his lips. Remember why we're fighting. Why are we fighting? Sarah's voice trembled, doubt rippling through her. Mike searched their faces, looking for that spark of courage. For each other. For the lives we want to live. We have to keep building that courage. Just as he finished, the void erupted with venomous energy. Shadows clawed at them, whispering their deepest fears, dredging up memories and insecurities. Do you really think you can defeat despair? The creature's voice hissed, winding its way into their thoughts. You are but flesh and bone fragile. Alone the walls trembled again, and suddenly darkness clawed at the edges of their vision, wrapping around them, pulling them toward the maw of fear. But in the eye of the storm, Mike felt a surge of determination. He wasn't ready to fold. Not now. We're not alone. He screamed into the abyss as the voices lurked, waiting for moments of weakness. His heart raced. Was it working? Then a blast of energy surged through the room, hope ignited again. But was it enough to forge a path through the darkness? An unsettling realization crawled up Mike's spine. They had pushed back, but the shadows were only regrouping. The creature was biding its time, readying for another strike. In an instant, the light dimmed, illuminating the cabin only briefly before the overwhelming darkness surged forward once more. Fight it! Mike yelled desperately, but the shadows roared, angry, hungry for despair. And as they lunged forward, a new fear struck. What if they didn't survive the next wave? What awaited them now in the engulfing darkness? In the swirling chaos, Mike could feel the weight of the shadows pulling at him, threatening to drown them in despair. Heart pounding, he grasped the edges of his card, the faint glimmer of light seeping through. They had fought hard, deeper into the heart of darkness, but now the creature seemed to know their every fear. Together, Mike shouted, urgency sharp in his voice. Don't look back. Focus on each other. Ethan's grip tightened around Mike's leg. His innocent face mirrored a fear that resonated through the entire room. But there was also determination, a flicker of hope in those wide eyes. We need to break the bond, Sarah cried, her voice full of purpose. It feeds on our fear. Let us stand together. The cabin groaned, a resonant reminder of the stakes. The shadows writhed like angry serpents, pooling like ink on the wooden floor. You are nothing without your darkness. The creature hissed, its voice slithering through the air, echoing off the creaking walls. You cannot escape. No, we won't let you win. Mike countered. Believe in each other. Believe in the light. They turned to face the abyss of shadows, unwilling to back down. In that moment, Mike thought of the memories that once filled their lives with laughter. Ethan's birthday parties, the first snowman they built as a family, cozy nights around the fire. He focused on those moments, drawing strength from love, from being a family. Now, Mike shouted, and without hesitation, the three of them flipped their cards simultaneously, flooding the space with blinding light, a fierce illumination that seemed to resonate with their unity. The creature shrieked, a horrifying sound that rippled through the cabin like shattering glass. What followed was chaotic brilliance, as the very walls of the cabin exploded with radiant energy. The shadows quivered, flickering against the onslaught of light. No, you cannot do this, the creature bellowed, but its voice was filled with an edge of fear, twisted with growing panic. Ethan, say it, Sarah urged, her voice fierce. Say what you want. Let it fuel the light. I want to go home. Ethan shouted, his voice ringing clear despite the violent, encroaching darkness. Their cards answered to his wish, shimmering with a golden glow. The air crackled, and the shadows began to retreat, their ghastly forms collapsing in on themselves as the light expanded in ferocity. This is your game, the creature cried, voice twisting in rage. You think this can hold me? I believe in us, Mike shouted, heart swelling with determination as he moved forward, drawing Sarah and Ethan with him. The room vibrated with energy as despair crumbled away, foundation by foundation. "Let us end this." They chorused together, and with one final push, they hurled their cards forward, shining like radiant stars. The blinding light exploded through the cabin, shattering the walls of darkness, scattering the shadows like dust in the wind. Suddenly, everything fell silent. The oppressive weight lifted, and the cabin sighed, its ancient timbers creaking with relief. Light enveloped them completely, illuminating every corner. When the brilliance faded, Mike opened his eyes to find emptiness. The cabin stood as it had when they first arrived, trying times carved into its wooden bones, but empty of the previous shadows. A gentle breeze brushed through the open windows, carrying away the lingering chill, giving way to a golden glow of a bright afternoon. "Did we?" Sarah whispered, surveying their surroundings in disbelief. "I think we did," Mike breathed as he dropped to his knees, wrapping his arms around Ethan, pulling him close. Relief washed over him, tears pooling in his eyes. "We're home." Ethan's joyful laughter echoed brightly around them, filling the previously haunted cabin with warmth. "Can we play now, Daddy?" He beamed up at Mike, innocence shining through the remnants of fear. "Absolutely, buddy," Mike chuckled, swiping at his own tear-streaked cheeks as he ruffled Ethan's hair. "We can play anything you want." As they gathered together, a sense of finality settled into the air. The struggle had forged them stronger, transformed them into a formidable united front against the darkness. As they stepped outside, the light glistened off the trees and the shadows retreated, banished back into the depths where they could no longer haunt. Mike embraced Sarah tightly, the weight of the world dissolved in her arms. "We did it," he breathed, his heart finally beginning to heal. "Together," Sarah replied, her eyes shining like stars against an endless sky. Cautious yet invigorated by the new light that surrounded them, they walked back toward their pickup, ready to leave Ravenswood behind, but carrying the lessons learned in their hearts. The cabin stood silent, a memory of battles fought and won, sheltering the echoes of their laughter that would stay forever within its walls. And so, while the Thompsons glanced back one last time, they left their dark past behind, moving towards the warmth and brightness of their shared future, hand in hand. Now that we've reached the end of this thrilling tale, it's time for you to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next pulse-pounding story. Smash the like button now because your support fuels this channel's growth. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this gripping ending. And don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans know just how important it is to support the channel through these actions. Go now.